Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Jaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiriya. Nashtu Prayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. Continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 19, the killing of the demon Hiranyaksha, text number 23 onwards. Tadadite sambhavat sahasa hridi vepathu smrantya bharturadesham stanna chasrik pasprasusrve. At that very moment, a shudder suddenly ran through the heart of Diti, the mother of Hiranyaksha. She recalled the words of her husband Kashyap, and blood flowed from her breasts. So what had happened before? So Lord now discharged his beloved Sudarshan, which is capable of dispersing the magical forces displayed by the demon. So he discharged Sudarshan, so Sudarshan took care of all these tricks, magical tricks that Hiranyaksha had produced. And now all of a sudden, Mother Diti, mother of Hiranyaksha, she had a shudder suddenly. See, mothers have this sixth sense about their child. No matter wherever they are, they're always connected with their child. And she remembered the words of her husband that Supreme Personality of Godhead will kill these two boys. And blood flowed from her breasts. At Hiranyak's last moment, his mother Diti remembered what her husband had said. Although her sons would be demons, they would have advantage of being killed by the personality of Godhead himself. She remembered this incident by the grace of the Lord, and her breasts flowed blood instead of milk. In many instances, we find that when a mother is moved by affection for her sons, milk flows from her breasts. In the case of the demon's mother, the blood could not transform into milk, but it flowed down her breasts as it was. Blood transforms into milk. To drink milk is auspicious, but to drink blood is inauspicious, although they are one and the same thing. This formula is applicable in the case of cow's milk also. So mother's connection to her son, and then she realized her son is going to be killed any time now. And Prabhupada says blood is transformed into milk. In the case of mothers, even cow or human mother or any mother actually. And Prabhupada says that it's applicable, means to drink milk is auspicious, but to drink blood is inauspicious. Means one should not kill animals and eat their meat and drink their blood. That's very, very sinful and demoniac. Vinashtasu swayamayasu bhuyascha vrajyakeshavam Rushopaguhumanoamum dadrishe avasthitam bahi. When the demon saw his magic forces dispelled, he once again came into the presence of the personality of Godhead. Keshav, and full of rage, tried to embrace him with his arms to crush him, but to his great amazement, he found the Lord standing outside the circle of his arms. So he tried to put his arms around Lord Varadev and tried to crush him, but he found Lord was outside his arms. In this verse, the Lord is addressed as Keshav because he killed the demon Keshi in the beginning of creation. Keshav is also a name of Krishna. Krishna is the origin of all incarnation. It is confirmed in Brahma Samhita that Govinda, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the cause of all causes, exists simultaneously in its different incarnations and expansions. The demon's attempt to measure the Supreme Personality of Godhead is significant. The demon wanted to embrace him with his arms, thinking that his thinking that with his limited arms he could capture the absolute by material power. He did not know that God is the greatest and the great and the smallest, greatest of the greatest and the smallest of the small. No one can capture the Supreme Lord or bring him under his control. But the demoniac person always attempts to measure the length and breadth of the Supreme Lord. By his inconceivable potency, the Lord can become the universal form, as explained in the Bhagavad Gita, and at the same time, he can remain within the box of his devotees as a worshipable deity. that is the Supreme Lord. He can be anything and everything. That's why he's the absolute, supreme absolute. Prabhupada says he can take up the universal form, which Arjuna saw when he was sitting on the chariot. And he can just take the little form and he can come in the box of the devotees when they're worshipping him, whichever way he likes, and whichever way the devotee wants him to be. There are many devotees who keep a statue of the Lord in a small box and carry it with them everywhere. Every morning they worship the Lord in the box. The Supreme Lord Keshav, or the personality of Godhead Krishna, is not bound by any measurement of our calculation. He can remain with his devotee in any suitable form, yet he is unapproachable by any amount of demoniac activities. That's his mercy, actually. And that's his relationship with his devotees. And the demon, on the other hand, although Hiranyaksha was a huge demon, huge, very, very big demon, but he tried to embrace the Lord and he could not. Lord was outside his arms, outside the embrace of his arms. Yashoda Maya also tried to bind Krishna with a rope, and Krishna did not even increase his size. Of course, he was playing with Yashoda Maya. Yashoda Maya is not a demon, but Krishna was just playing with her. And Krishna did not even increase his size. He was still the small little boy, whatever, 3 or 5 years old he was at that time. And Yashoda Maya tying up the ropes of the whole Braj, she could not tie up Krishna. That is Krishna. But when he wanted to get tied up, he just got tied up so easily. So nobody knows the length and breadth of the Supreme Lord. And here, Prabhupada says, Krishna is named Keshav because he killed the demon Keshi in the beginning of creation. But he also killed Keshi when he was doing his Leela in Vrindavan. So they could be different demons, Keshi demons. Tam mushti bhir vinignan vrajasare radhokshajaha karena karna mulehan yathadvashtram marutpatihi. The demon now began to strike the Lord with his hard fists, but Lord Adhokshaja slapped him in the root of the ear, even as Indra, the lord of the Maruts, hit the demon Prithra. So this demon Hiranyaksha, he was started to hit the Lord with his fist. And what did the Lord do? Just slapped him in the root of his ear. I think he slapped him on the left ear. That's what I had read somewhere, I guess. The Lord is explained here to be Adhokshaja, beyond the reach of all material calculation. Akshaja means the measurement of our senses, and Adhokshaja means that which is beyond the measurement of our senses. And when the Lord slapped him like that, the root of the ear, so ahato vishwajita hi avagyaya paribhramad gatra udastalochana vishirna bhavangri shiroruhu aho apatad yatha nagendra lulito nabhasvata. Those struck indifferently by the Lord. Lord didn't hit him like a boxer, like Mike Tyson is hitting his opponent. No, he just slapped him a little bit, not even with force. the conqueror of all. The demon's body began to wheel. His eyeballs bulged out of their sockets, his arms and legs broken, and the hair on his head scattered. He fell down dead, like a gigantic tree uprooted by the wind. That is our Supreme Lord. That is Lord Varahadev. It does not take even a moment for the Lord to kill any powerful demon, including Hiranyaksha. The Lord could have killed him long before, but he allowed the demon to display the full extent of his magical feats. One may know that by magical feats, by scientific advancement of knowledge, or by material power, one cannot become the equal of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. His one signal is sufficient to destroy all our attempts. His inconceivable power displayed here is so strong that the demon, despite all his demoniac maneuvers, was killed by the Lord when the Lord desired, simply by one slap. And not even hard slap, it was very little touch by the Lord. And look at demon, he just fell down dead. His eyes bulged out of the sockets, his arms and legs are broken, and the hair on his head scattered. He fell down dead. So this is the power of the Lord. He doesn't display it all the time. He didn't kill him he didn't kill him earlier, but first of all, he wanted to have that pleasure of fighting. And secondly, of course, not in this case, because Hiranyaksha was one of his doorkeepers. But in other cases, he plays with the demons. Basically, he gives them a chance to surrender to him. And if the demon surrenders, Krishna's words, Sarvadharman parityaja mam ekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarva papebhya mokshashyami ma shucha. He gives an opportunity again and again and over again for the demons to surrender. And if they surrender, he would take care of all the sinful activities. He said, do not worry. I'll absolve you of all the sinful activities. But the problem is with the demons. They don't want to surrender. They don't like to surrender. The pride is so high, they just can't overcome it. So then they all meet this kind of fate, what Hiranyaksha had to go through. Shitoshanam tam kunthavarchasam karaladansham paridashtadachadam ajadev viksha shashan suragata aho imam konu labheta samstitim. Aja, Brahma, and others arrived on the spot to see the fearfully tough demon lying on the ground, biting his lip. The glow of his face was yet unfaded, and Brahma admiringly said, "Oh, who could meet such blessed death?" The death was blessed because he was touched by the Supreme Lord. Although the demon was dead, his bodily luster was unfaded. See, another thing at the time of death, when somebody is spiritually advanced, in general, I'm not talking about this demon. In general, if he is spiritually advanced, his bodily luster remains. Means because the body had become spiritualized. It wasn't material anymore. And if he wasn't a spiritual person, the luster fades right away. As soon as the soul leaves the body, the luster goes away. And the body becomes stiff, very stiff. But for a spiritual person, the body remains very soft. Just like recently, you all must have seen this, the Samadhi ceremony of this Mathadhish of Udupi temple, in Udupi Krishna temple. So wonderful, wonderful sannyasi. I'm forgetting his name. And you must have seen the Samadhi ceremony, how they lowered his body and his body was still so soft and effulgent. It was amazing. He took sannyas at the age of 7. And he left his body at the age of 80, some 88 or so. So all these years he was a sannyasi, Ramanuja Sampradaya, and he left his body. Amazing scene it was. And similarly, you can see Prabhupada's, the final moment of Prabhupada is Samadhi ceremony, how his body was still so flexible and so effulgent. Although the demon was dead, his bodily luster was unfaded. This is very peculiar because when a man or animal is dead, the body immediately becomes pale. The luster gradually fades and decomposition takes place. But here, although Hiranyaksha lay dead, his bodily luster was unfaded because the Lord, the Supreme Spirit, was touching his body. One's bodily luster remains fresh as long as the spirit soul is present. Although the demon's soul had departed his body, the Supreme Spirit touched the body, and therefore his bodily luster did not fade. The individual soul is different from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One who sees the Supreme Personality of Godhead when he quits his body is certainly very fortunate. And therefore personalities like Brahma and the other demigods eulogize the death of the demon. Of course, this demon is servant of Krishna in Vaikuntha anyway, so he was going to get a glorious death. But they had to play the part of demon for 3 lifetimes. But nevertheless, because the Lord touched his body and Lord killed him, his body remained glowing. It was glowing. Similarly, like how the Lord killed so many demons in Vrindavan, especially Putna. Putna was killed, and when the Brajvasis cut up her body, because her body was 12 miles long, and they had to cut her up and burn her, cremate her. They cut her up because it's practice in villages that if a snake dies, then you don't just burn him up, you just cut up the body of that snake and then burn him up, because it's a superstition, or maybe it's a true thing, I don't know. It is said that if you burn up a body of a snake like that, the full body, he becomes alive and he comes back. But if you cut him up, then he doesn't come back as snake. But anyway, they cut up the body of Putna, and when they burnt her up, the smell of aguru, like it's a very sweet, very aromatic, very fragrant smell, that was coming from her body. Although she was a demoness, she was a Rakshasi. But because Krishna, she fed Krishna her breast milk, and Krishna had accepted her service. So this is mercy of Krishna. Although she came with an intention of killing Krishna, but Krishna accepted her service, her mood of mother. So when her body was cut up, the smell of agru was coming, and all the Brajvasis was thinking, where is the smell coming from? Maybe it's coming from Patal Loka, where people must be doing some yajna. They were thinking like that. Text 28. Yam yogino yog samadhina raho dhyayanti lingada satomo mukshya tasya shuddhatya rishabha padahato mukham prapashyan tanum utsasarjaha. Brahma continued. He was struck by a forefoot of the Lord, whom yogis seeking freedom from their unreal material bodies meditate upon in seclusion in mystic trance. While gazing on his countenance, this crest jewel of Dita's sons has cast off his mortal coil. The process of yoga is very clearly described in this verse of Srimad Bhagavatam. It is said here that the ultimate end of the yogis and mystics who perform meditation is to get rid of this material body. Therefore, they meditate in secluded places to attain yogic trance. Yoga has to be performed in a secluded place, not in public or in a demonstration on stage, as nowadays practiced by so many many so-called yogis. Of course, they don't practice yoga when they do it on stage or in public. It's basically they do yoga asanas. So this is one part of the Ashtanga yoga. Real yoga aims at ridding one of the material body. Yoga practice is not intended to keep the body fit and young. Such advertisements of so-called yoga are not approved by any standard method. Particularly mentioned in this verse, it's the word yam or unto whom, indicating that meditation should be targeted on the personality of Godhead. Even if one concentrates his mind on the Bore form of the Lord, that is also yoga. So yoga means to link oneself with the Supreme, to link one's consciousness, to link one's mind, link one's intelligence, link one's activities in the service of the Supreme. So when the mind is absorbed in the Lord, that's also called yoga. And that is one of the 8 processes of devotional service. So the devotion is bhakti yoga if the mind is absorbed in the Lord and in the service of the Lord in a very favorable way. So then it becomes bhakti yoga. And meditation on the Lord, meditation just as a neutral person, then it becomes hatha yoga. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, one who concentrates his mind constantly in meditation upon the personality of Godhead in one of his many varieties of forms is a first-class yogi. And he can very easily attain trance simply by meditating upon the form of the Lord. If one is able to continue such meditation on the Lord's form at the time of one's death, one is liberated from this mortal body and is transferred to the kingdom of God. This opportunity was given to the demon by the Lord, and therefore Brahma and other demigods were astonished. In other words, the perfection of yoga practice can be attained by a demon also if he is simply kicked by the Lord, if he is simply kicked by the Lord. So the demon, as we studied earlier, when the Lord gave them benediction that you do go down on the earth and take the birth of 3 times as demons, he said, you will be connected with me when you will be meditating upon me in anger. Even in anger, Hiranyaksha was thinking of the Lord. He was connected with the Lord. He was meditating on the Lord. And so that's why when he left his body, first of all, he got touched, he got kicked by the Supreme God. And then secondly, he was always meditating on the Lord. Of course, it's not the best way to leave the body, being killed by the Lord or thinking of him in anger. But this was one of the pastimes performed by the Lord and his devotee for his pleasure. So, eto to parshadavasya shapadhyata vasadgatim punah katipaya sthanam prapatsayete janbhi. These 2 personal assistants of the Supreme Lord, having been cursed, have been detained to take birth in demonic families. After a few such births, they will return to their own positions. So this is what Brahmaji says. So what Devta say, we'll discuss tomorrow. Let's stop here. See anybody has any questions or comments? So I guess we can stop here. You all have a wonderful day. Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.